People think heartbreak makes you stronger, but in reality, it just makes you desperate enough to accept anyone's embrace. That was exactly how I ended up on a cracked sidewalk in Virginia, my tie strangling me like a bad joke, while Ethan Parker, another groom-to-be turned disaster case, offered me his last cigarette like it was some kind of salvation. We had both been left behind within hours of walking down the aisle. Him by a fiancée who decided she wasn't ready for forever. Me by a fiancé who admitted he was in love with someone else right as he adjusted his cufflinks. You'd think tragedies like these belong to soap operas, but no. They happen in real life. They happen to us. The first time Ethan's eyes met mine, he laughed. Not because anything was funny, nothing about being jilted at the altar is comedic, but because life had orchestrated the cruelest symmetry. 2 strangers. 2 canceled weddings. 1 town gossip mill already sharpening its knives. Guess it's fate, Ethan muttered, his voice edged with bitterness. Or a sick cosmic prank? I replied, though when our fingers brushed over the lighter, a strange heat bloomed inside my chest, one I wasn't ready to name. By the following week, people in town had decided for us. We were a couple. They whispered it at the grocery store, winked when we left the bar together, smirked at the idea of 2 abandoned men finding solace in each other's arms. And the wildest part? I didn't even try to correct them. Neither did Ethan. First, it was convenient, a way to dodge pity. When neighbors assumed we were together, they stopped giving us those sad looks, the ones that made your stomach sink lower than the church steps where you'd been humiliated. Pretending gave us air to breathe, but little by little, pretending became something else. Something messier. Something dangerous. One night, Ethan showed up at my place, drenched from the rain. His tie was loose, his hair clinging to his forehead, his smile cracked wide open. He smelled like bourbon and regret. Do you ever feel like, maybe we weren't meant for them? Maybe we were meant for something else? His words lingered like smoke, impossible to wave away. I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to remind him we were just 2 broken men patching each other's wounds. But then he stepped closer, the storm dripping from his jacket onto my hardwood floor, and I forgot how to breathe. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't have to. The electricity in the room was enough to set the curtains on fire. The truth is, I never believed in fate. I believed in choices, good ones, bad ones, the kind you carry like scars. Yet being around Ethan made me wonder if some things were written before we even showed up to play our parts. Still, neither of us dared to speak it aloud. Instead, we played our roles, letting the town's assumptions stitch together a reality we didn't yet have the courage to claim. We went to Sunday brunches together. We fixed each other's ties before church. We laughed too loud at each other's terrible jokes. And sometimes, when the night got too quiet, we let our shoulders press together longer than necessary. But silence has a way of cracking under pressure. The first real fracture came at his ex's engagement party. Yes, she had the audacity to throw one. Yes, we were both invited. And yes, we went together hand in hand, for show. At least, that's what I told myself. The night was dripping with glitter and champagne, all fake smiles and hollow toasts. I should have kept my cool. But when I saw Ethan's ex-girlfriend place her diamond-ringed hand on her new fiancé's chest, and Ethan's face crumpled just a fraction, I felt something feral ignite inside me. Without thinking, I tightened my grip on his hand. He looked at me, then really looked at me. His eyes weren't broken. They were burning. "You don't have to pretend right now," he whispered. "But what if I'm not pretending?" I whispered back. That was the moment the ground shifted. The night became too small, the air too heavy. We left early, stumbling out into the cold air, the silence between us ringing louder than any song inside. On the street, under the yellow glow of street lamps, Ethan stopped walking, his hand still in mine, his voice shaking. "Tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me this isn't just 2 broken hearts looking for glue." My chest tightened. What if it started that way, but it's not anymore? He kissed me before I could finish. It wasn't gentle. It was raw, hungry, furious at the world but desperate to claim something real from its ruins. And for the first time since being abandoned, I didn't feel like someone's leftover. I felt chosen. Of course, things weren't magically perfect after that. How could they be? We were still the town's favorite scandal, still haunted by ghosts of vows we never got to make. But for once, I didn't care, because every time Ethan's hand found mine, every time his laughter broke through the darkness, I knew I'd found something far better than the wedding I'd lost. The kiss should have terrified me. Instead, it anchored me in a way I hadn't expected. Ethan's lips were urgent, trembling like he was afraid this would vanish the moment he blinked. I kissed him back with the same desperation, two men trying to rewrite a story that had begun with rejection. But the morning after was quieter. He stood in my kitchen wearing one of my shirts, hair messy, eyes shadowed. For a second, I worried he would call it a mistake, that we'd go back to pretending for the town's sake. Instead, he poured himself coffee and said, "I don't want to fake it anymore. Not with you." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was terrifying. To say yes meant risking everything: the whispers, the judgment, even the possibility that we were just rebound wreckage clinging to each other. But the idea of saying no felt worse, like cutting myself off from the only real thing I'd felt in months. So I chose him, quietly at first, with shared dinners and late-night confessions, with kisses in parking lots where no one dared look, with small touches that spoke louder than words. And slowly, the pretending melted into something undeniable. Still, love never unfolds without battles. The world isn't kind to men like us, especially not in a town that thrives on appearances. Rumors sharpened like knives. Some people smirked, others sneered. A few friends stopped calling altogether. At the grocery store one afternoon, I overheard a stranger mutter, "Guess broken people will settle for anything." The words stung. They clung to me like wet clothes until Ethan noticed my silence later that night. "Talk to me," he urged, sitting on the edge of the bed, his hand grazing mine. "They think we're pathetic," I admitted, "like we're just left behind," so we grabbed the only other option. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Is that what you think? That I chose you because I was desperate?" I shook my head, but my throat ached with doubt. He moved closer, his voice softer now. "I didn't settle for you. I found you. There's a difference." The sincerity in his eyes broke me open. For once, I stopped worrying about what everyone else believed. Weeks later, the confrontation came. At a neighborhood barbecue, someone decided to play brave, tossing out a mocking, "So, which one of you is the wife?" Laughter followed, sharp and cruel. My stomach knotted, shame rising, but Ethan didn't flinch. He set his beer down, pulled me in by the waist, and kissed me in front of everyone. Slow, deliberate, unshakable. The world fell silent. When he pulled back, his voice was steady. "Neither of us is the wife. We're just two men who were smart enough not to let good love slip away twice." From that moment, something shifted. Not in everyone, of course. Some still judged. But others softened, realized maybe what we had wasn't tragedy, it was survival, resilience, even beauty. And for me, that kiss in the open air became a declaration. We weren't anyone's leftovers. We were each other's choice. Love with Ethan wasn't always easy. We argued, sometimes fiercely, about whether moving away would make things better, about whether we were strong enough to handle the weight of the past. But every fight ended the same way, with silence that bent, then gave way to laughter, apologies, and the kind of embrace that reminded us why we kept trying. The turning point came a year later, on what would have been my original wedding anniversary. I thought the day would gut me, reopen wounds I'd tried to bury. Instead, Ethan showed up with takeout, candles, and an old record player. "Let's give the date a new memory," he said. We danced in my living room, bare feet brushing against the carpet, the soft crackle of vinyl filling the silence between us. He pressed his forehead against mine and whispered, "I used to think getting left behind was the worst thing that could happen. Turns out, it was the best." My chest ached, but this time with joy. "Because it led you to me." His eyes glistened. Exactly. That night, I realized something profound. Love isn't about grand ceremonies or perfect vows spoken in front of hundreds. It's about the quiet moments, pouring coffee in the morning, laughing at the same dumb TV shows, choosing each other again and again when the world gives you every reason not to. And maybe, just maybe, heartbreak isn't an ending. It's a doorway. So yes, both of us were abandoned before we could even say, I do. People assumed we patched ourselves together out of desperation. They gossiped, they guessed, they doubted. But here's what they never understood. Love doesn't always arrive the way you plan. Sometimes it shows up in the ruins, waiting in the wreckage, wearing a crooked smile and holding out a cigarette like a peace treaty. And when it does, you don't argue. You don't run. You take it because it's the realest thing you'll ever find. I was left behind at the altar, humiliated, broken. So was Ethan. But in that shared devastation, we built something better than any wedding day could promise. Now, when people look at us, they don't see tragedy anymore. They see two men who refused to stay abandoned. Two men who turned heartbreak into a beginning. Two men who learned that sometimes the only way to survive being left behind is to walk forward together. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.